I was going to make a video about this a little earlier, but then the whole meeting with President Zelensky happened, so I had to make a little emergency pit stop on that one. But recently, last week, the Trump administration announced a new quote unquote gold card, which apparently acts like a green card and is set at a whopping price of $5 million. This goes back, I guess I'll backtrack the fact that this goes back to, talks about late December, about H-1B visas. How people on the far right, their thoughts of immigration were, anti-immigration in total, let alone, you know, um, legal immigration. They didn't care if you were legal or not. They were just anti-immigration. They wanted to preserve the identity that the U.S. is somehow a Christian nation and we should, do our best to, dominate Christianity and, American culture as the predominant culture. And, there is a tiny, very tiny bit of merit to that. I think it is important for Americans to have our own sort of identity or common shared culture. But if you're going to sit here and tell me that, the little Italies of the world, the little Chinatowns, the German villages in various cities, if you're going to sit here and tell me that that's not American or that doesn't deserve to be here, you're just plain wrong. And you find most of these people who are, against, immigration don't really mind little Italies or German villages. It's mostly the Chinatowns and Indian streets and K-towns that they're more interested in getting rid of, which tells you all you need to know. But, I am of the perspective where it's like immigration is definitely good, especially high talented, high skilled people. Competing with China on the global stage, it doesn't make sense to just close our doors. I mean, you see that with Japan. Their population is tanking. People are getting older and older. People are going to have to live with their parents, take care of their parents as they age. So you need a working class population. Forget if they're skilled or not. You need a working class population. So opening our doors to safe, good, legal immigration is definitely the right move. With this gold card, I think it's even better. Based off solely what, the Trump administration said about we want the highest skilled people to come into this country, the people who are going to open up businesses and employ lots of people. That's what you want. And I hope that their word is kept safe. I hope their word remains true, that they are going to go through intense vetting, because obviously I don't want, a Russian oligarch or, which Trump joked about, or I don't want any corrupt person coming into this country and, reaping the benefits of the American worker. But, $5 million is a hefty price. Apparently there is a shit ton of people who want to take advantage of this gold card, so much so that we could make potentially $1 million added to the debt. I think that's brilliant. This is not any new thinking. Traditionally, if you brought immense value to the country, your visa, your process of coming into this country would certainly be expedited. Think about if you're a performer from overseas and you're doing a concert or you're doing a tour here, of course your visa is going to get approved faster. So this is just one of those ways of incentivizing and adding to that. I find it funny how, the Charlie Kirks of the world and all these people on the far right are not commenting about this because it goes against their thinking, but at the same time they blindly follow what Trump does. So I find that funny, and I thought it was worth mentioning. In terms of the idea that people need to be in this country for economic growth, I really don't see the argument when Charlie Kirk says, what about a kid who, grew up in Washington, went to University of Washington, got a computer science degree, and all of a sudden he can't compete with some kid in India who, you know, is very good at computer science and coding, and Apple hires them over the kid who's, sat there and, um, you know, lived in America and worked in America and grew up in America. I think there is a tiny bit of merit, right? I think in terms of public education, it's a different idea than corporation and corporate culture. For example, you know, public schools um, always put an emphasis on in-state students, and I think that is noble. I think that makes sense, right? You're paying into the state's taxes, you live in the state, you're going to probably remain in the state, so it's only fair that the state rewards you by giving you a little bit of a boost in terms of getting into their respective state school. This varies between state and state, but I think that fundamental idea is good. I think limiting the amount of international students um, is fair and it's fine. Obviously, private universities exist and they can do what they want. But if you're a public university and your number one revenue source, your number one funding source comes from the taxpayer, you owe it to them to, give them a little bit of a priority and a little bit of an edge. But in terms of corporations, we live in a free market. Arguing against immigration and merit-based corporate, like Charlie Kirk, it just doesn't add up. I mean, he just wants to say that he doesn't want other cultures, people of other backgrounds, people who are darker than him in this country. Because if he really truly loves to peddle the idea of like we want a merit-based system and we don't want any DEI, which is fine, that is definitely an argument you can make. How are you going to sit here and tell me that you're against, allowing H-1B visas or people with exceptional talents overseas to come into America? That's not free market. That's not merit. Um, yeah, so it's just obviously hypocrisy. Um, Listen, I guess me personally, I don't really mind, when someone invites me to say a Christian verse or attending a church. I don't mind any of that. Um, as long as it's not shoved down my throat to say, hey, this is what you have to practice. American culture is the only culture to practice. I don't I don't really care as long as you allow me to practice what I want to practice in terms of my language, my culture, my ideas, my thoughts. That's a free society. That's a democracy. That's all I have to say about that. But we'll see what happens. Thank you for watching.